Nie powinnam pić.
Przepraszam. Powinienem wiedzieć.
Nie, nie przepraszaj. To moja wina. Jak to się mówi?
No ale co?
Somali... Somali?
Sommelier.
Ty to zawsze wszystko wiesz.
So, New Lives is a powerful immigration story, and it's described as a Holocaust survivor story of trauma and resilience in 1950s Brooklyn. What inspired you to make this film?
Yeah, well, yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for having me. What was the inspiration? The inspiration for the film, I think, was long standing. Both of my grandparents on my dad's side were survivors. And so I never met them because they passed away in the 90s. Um, so I had grown up with, I guess, their stories or memories that my dad would tell me. And I guess I was just fascinated with kind of the dual narrative of my grandparents who came here and raised a family and, by all accounts were wonderful parents to my dad, but also had endured such like, the most unimaginable horror. And I was like, I didn't know how someone could do that or what that felt like. And as I got older and as I got more into film, I knew that it was always an area that I wanted to explore because I felt like there were a lot of, you know, truly amazing representations of life during the war, during the camps on screen. But there weren't really films about kind of like, well, what happened to life after you survived this thing and how do you kind of rebuild your life? So the film really began as kind of like an investigation on my end, piecing together what I could glimpse from my dad, and then through research, because, a lot of survivors didn't really talk about what they felt or what they went through. I also think there's an error, and it's true, like the generation um of survivors and like their descendants, I think are like with like the most successful generation of people. Um, they were just incredibly hardworking and achieved so much of like the American dream here. So there wasn't a lot of like documenting about how people were actually feeling during that time. Um, so yeah, I just kind of really came from a place of deep curiosity.
It was wonderful on its own, and it also hit me personally because I have a lot of family members who perished in the Holocaust, and I've always wondered how do people who survived, whether they were in the Holocaust themselves or whether they were family members who lost family members, how they move on from such trauma to live healthy lives, raise healthy children, do so in a new country. And so in your 20-minute film, you hit all of those. And it was impressive on its own. And the fact that you as a college student did this and you took on the task of writing and directing this film in a foreign language as well. Do you speak Polish? And if not, what were some challenges of creating a film in a language that you do not speak?
Yeah, well, thank you so much for your kind words. No, do not speak Polish. I studied abroad in the Czech Republic and there was a kind of a collaboration between the film school there and NYU where I went when I was a junior. So I made a film in Czech. And I think that was kind of like a testing ground. That film, which didn't really turn out the way that I wanted to, but I was in Prague, and so I wanted to make a film kind of set during the Nazi occupation about a young boy who's like told the story of the Golem, right? Um, and it was a really hard film to make, and it was in Czech, which I didn't speak, but I felt like doing that at least gave me the groundwork for if I wanted to make a film in a different language, it would be a lot of work. But as long as find the right collaborators, as long as I find actors who speak both languages, and as long as I have time to work on the words so that when we're on set, it's like I know what they're saying, even though if I don't literally know, I understand what they're saying through body language. And because it's film, it's like a visual medium. So it's like not even about the words anyway. And I feel like because the film is so much like, yes, what they're saying, but what they're not saying. So by the time I got on the set, I felt totally confident about what we're doing. Definitely during the production of it was a little crazy because it started in 2019 when I was a senior at NYU, and I was slated to film in 2020. And then of course the pandemic happened and everything kind of got shifted. So I didn't actually get to shoot until 2 years after through NYU. They let me shoot after I graduated. But during that time, it was like I had the prep time, which I think, you know, I I, I was really lucky to have, and also great actors who helped me out a lot. So it's definitely a challenge, not something that I would necessarily do again, but I think it was really important to to get that kind of the immigrant experience of like not speaking the language is just another barrier, right? To like feeling out of place and feeling I think like confident when you're by yourself or like when you're in your apartment and you're speaking your language natively, and then when you're out in the world and it's this completely foreign thing. And I think I just wanted that type of specificity in the film.
Yeah, I know.
Why didn't you get it for him? Why didn't you
What
get
can do
it?
with the film? Take Jacob and come upstairs.
It came out so well. You were able to do all of that. And your actors performed superbly. Was it difficult to find the actors to play the three Polish characters?
Yeah, so it's interesting because actually it was challenging in a way, but the lead actress Veronica, I she was the first person that I saw, period. I reached out to a Polish theater in Greenpoint in Brooklyn, and they recommended her, and this was like back in 2019. So it was a combination of being just like proactive. I put up posters like in Greenpoint, which is like a very, heavily Polish speaking area. Um, so it actually wasn't as hard as one would think, just because there's such a large Polish speaking population. Part of me actually considered earlier doing it in Yiddish, but that actually was even more challenging because, of course, there aren't the native speaking Yiddish population is like the Orthodox, and they're of course not acting. So it made sense. My grandparents spoke Polish, so it did make sense a lot, and I lucked out in having just really wonderful actors to work with.
And I know that New Lives had its international premiere at the Camera Image International Film Festival in Turin, Poland. What was it like to show the film in Poland and how was it received there?
Yeah, that was interesting. I don't know if you've seen the film A Real Pain.
Yes.
Uh, but I saw that and I was like, I think that film really captured what it feels like to go to Poland as a Jew, right? Um, and I went like in the dead of winter, like taking these train rides, and it was a really strange experience. I actually spent some time in Warsaw before, but Turin is like a very small medieval town, but it's known internationally for cinematography. So you have people from all over the world coming there. And it was just an amazing opportunity and very special to film to show a Polish language film in a festival that's so revered, especially for cinematography. Um, and yeah, it was just a pretty surreal experience for me.
Did the completed film meet your vision?
Yeah, I think it probably, you know, there's all it's like you make what do they say? You make the film three times, right? You make it when you're writing it, you make it when you're directing it, making it when you're editing it. I actually think there's probably a fourth time when you show it with an audience and then it kind of becomes its own thing. And I think you make something that's especially very niche and you have no idea how it will connect. I had hoped that it would connect primarily to a Jewish audience, but it seems to resonate universally when I've screened it, which is which is really rewarding. It seems like people are able to connect with it through different angles, through if you're Jewish, obviously through the immediate kind of setting of the film, but people connect to it as immigrants, as just people, going through life. So I'm there's there's nothing more rewarding than making something that is so personal to you and then have it resonate with audiences who don't know you, who have no connection to you or the film. And I think that was just a really, really, really special thing to have.
That's really nice. I actually was wondering about that in terms of the audience besides the Jewish audience. So
Right.
that's interesting to hear. Do you have any interesting anecdotes to share from the filming?
Yeah, I mean it was definitely tough. I mean we shot it in my friend's like pre-war building in Brooklyn. I actually tried to shoot it in the exact apartment building that my grandparents lived in Bensonhurst, but that didn't end up working out. But it was funny, my dad, he's like the janitor, like the very small bit, like that's my
Mhm.
dad. And so like he was on set and it was funny because he was like, oh yeah, like the apartment building hadn't changed probably in 50 years. Like it was kind of run down and decrepit, which was perfect. We actually didn't have to do a lot, but what we did is that we filmed in one apartment and then kind of flipped it to be two for the upstairs and the downstairs. Um, and yeah, it was a very intense shoot, but turned out well, I think. So.
Sara jest na zakupach. Ona jest zawsze na zakupach. Wszystkie książki mówią, żeby się dać dziecku wypłakać, ale moja żona się upiera, żeby młody spał z nami. Co, Smyku, głodny jesteś? Przytrzymaj go, ja zrobię mleko.
Jak ma na imię?
Jacob, Jakub.
Jakub. Hallelujah.
Joey, as we wrap up, I'm wondering if you would share with us what keeps you motivated as a filmmaker and what you are working on now.
I think what keeps me motivated is I think a desire to like keep on making films that are really personal to me to and then to want to share it with people. I think it's really it's really special to have that connection. And if I can keep on doing that for the rest of my life, I think I would be pretty happy because I think there's nothing more powerful than someone coming up to you after the film and saying, well, this reminded me of my grandmother or this reminded me of this. And um I think making a film is so difficult. It's so hard. Um, and it feels like a miracle to just kind of like get something on the screen. And then in terms of what I'm working on next, I'm working on a Jewish short, going into pre-production, trying to shoot this fall. But the film is called Shagets, and it's set in the ultra-Orthodox in Brooklyn. It's about a 12-year-old who sneaks out to a punk show and discovers kind of a life-altering truth about his brother, who he was told passed away when he was young. So it's a coming-of-age film set in these two worlds over one night. Um, and similarly, like very specific, but hopefully very, very universal in its themes.
That sounds pretty creative. I look forward to
Yeah,
seeing that and more of your films over the years. And I want to thank you, Joey, so much for your time. This has been a
yeah,
pleasure having the chance to speak with you.
yeah. Well, thank you so much, Tali. I really appreciate it.